Tony Quirk. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you coming in, man.
Thank you for having me, Jim.
We've never met before, so I really appreciate the time. I guess
She said, taking it on faith.
if Andy can do it, anyone can do it. So I took Petrowski on the other day. I got a lot of time for Andy, even though I introduced him as one of the most hated politicians in Niagara. You might fit into that category, too. Anyone in the Niagara region might fit into that category. The bonus is that you're with the NPCA, too, which is, wow.
So
you
I
guys
get
getting a lot of hate.
A double hate
Yeah.
whammy. Double whammy, absolutely.
So I appreciate, I'm just going to get this up and running here. This doesn't look like it's going too well. That's the Facebook Live, so hello to Facebook Live. We might have to restart this. Oh, no, it looks good now. So.
Is it working?
Yeah. So
right.
Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. And like I said to you when you walked in, I said, we ever met before? I don't think so. But so, yeah, thanks for taking it on, Faith, because, there isn't another platform like this in Niagara. And I've really been concerned and disappointed by the lack of objective local issue coverage in the media. We know that the Standard seems to have a hard-on for a few groups or men and women making fun, and I don't mind. Hey, you want to call me out for something I did? That's up to me to be a big boy and own up to it. But it seems like this identity politics or this personal politics is just run rampant. So, and then 610, I don't want to carve on my boys over at 610. Obviously, I was there for a long time. I love the station. I mean, I got so much passion, and anyone that knows me or has seen anything that I do online, or the passion just spills over. And 610 is one of the loves of my life. I mean, I started at CHSC way back in the day. I joke, radio was my first love, and I love 610, but it just really frustrated by the lack of local content. Tommy hasn't done a local call-in issue for what he said the other day, 3 years. That hurts.
Yeah.
I don't care what Tony Quirk thinks when he comes on about Donald Trump. I do care more about what the callers think. So we've kind of lost that. So I've been quiet for a long time. I think my ego was bruised more than a little after running for mayor, essentially just to keep Walter out. That was no secret. I wanted to expose him for what many probably didn't know about him, going back to the Chamber of Commerce and that kind of stuff. It's not personal. It's political. That beat the shit out of me, like no other campaign ever has, not because I didn't win, because I never actually ran an election where I thought I could win as a Green Party candidate or municipally or for the mayor. I ran to make sure that Jeff won. Birch, he's my guy. We see eye to eye on stuff. Not so much anymore. That one hurt a lot. I couldn't believe that he pulled it out. But I buried the hatchet quickly. We got to move on. And my life didn't end because Walter became mayor. Now, strangely enough, I'm thinking, I haven't never run for anything that I actually had a shot to win. I didn't run for mayor thinking that I was going to win. My 500 votes proves I didn't put a whole lot of financial effort into it, or I was there not as a spoiler, but as maybe a functional piece of the conversation. I mean, I ran for the leadership of the Green Party in 2006 because Elizabeth May and David Chernyshenko were friends. And there was a small faction of the party that said, this isn't going to go well. These guys are going to hold hands all the way through. We're not going to talk about any of the controversial issues. So enter Jim Fannon. We talked about all the controversial issues. And I went all over the country doing debates with the Green Party. And they haven't had a leadership race since. As a grassroots Democratic Party, the Green Party, please. This bullshit about having 75% and getting a free ride at every convention. Anyways, I don't want to make it about me. It is. It's a Jim Fannon Show. Tony Quirk's my guest. Thanks for tuning in to people on Facebook Live. This will be uploaded with no edits, no commercials later, with better sound. I'm not sure what it sounds like there, but these microphones are actually hooked up to another camera that's doing a better job, and that will be uploaded to YouTube later. We're on iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, I don't know, pretty much all the podcast platforms. You can find us on SoundCloud too. I see that I'm pretty fucking sweaty there, Tony. Man, you're nice and cool. And the host is a big, fat, sweaty mess. Tony Quirk's my guest today. I'm just going to read from your Niagara Regional page, and thanks for the bio. It sucked, but I do know what your daughter's names and your wife's name and what you do for fun is now. Councillor Quirk, first elected to municipal council in 2003. Served as, alderman. Remember when we used to call him alderman? So you're on city council too, Ward 2 in Grimsby?
We still call him alderman in Grimsby.
Okay, cool. Old-fashioned. And you still get a volunteer fire department.
We do have a volunteer firefighter, one of the best in the country.
I'd like to look at that for everyone across the country. Again, for what we're paying the firemen. Nothing against the firemen. But, man, we could speak 2 hours about how awesome our volunteer fire department is and the fact that they are now certified as the training center for all volunteer fighters. And a brand new house, too.
A brand new house to do it in.
Cool.
Absolute fantastic facility. So that could be a whole conversation.
Tony Quirk, well, we'll have you back because I want to hit some other things. And you got council tonight, so we got to have you out of here in a couple hours.
It's only committee of the whole, so I don't have to change.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we don't have council tonight. It's just, what committee?
It's budget committee of the whole. We're going to be approving our capital budget.
All right, cool.
In principle.
So from 2006 to 2014, town council in Grimsby, and then served as the chair of the Grimsby Downtown Improvement Area Board of Management. And your personal life designs pollution control equipment, for industrial applications.
I'm a green Tory.
Wow. They almost don't exist anymore.
Exactly. Or they turn out they run for the Green Party eventually.
More and more all the time, hopefully. Previously, you served as an executive assistant at Queen's Park. I didn't know that.
When Mike Harris got elected, I was working for the party, helping out, and
wow.
I ended up working at Queen's Park for one of the MPPs there. Peter Preston was my boss. Unfortunately, he just recently passed away this time last year, actually. Great guy to work with. Taught me about putting the fun into politics. Was a guy that was not worried about getting reelected. He just wanted to do the right thing, and cost him a few occasions where he probably said the wrong thing, but he always spoke his mind. Just a great guy.
Well, I appreciate your diversity. It's certainly, you've got politics in your blood, I guess, because who would put themselves in the line of fire at the NPCA, the Queen's Park, and the region, and municipal is not always a cakewalk either, man. I mean, this is, the most important level of politics for me is the one closest to the people, which is municipal, and that's why we'll talk about it later. But I wish the region would just fucking go away. I wish we'd disband it because we don't need them. It's just another higher level, further away. They're distant, and their solutions don't always match with what the municipalities think.
I think there is a legitimate debate to be had about replacing the region with a series of service bodies, local service bodies that would allow us, or service boards, to allow us to get the economies of scale for things like water, police, a few other things where the cost has to be
economic development.
But you get to the point where we are an extra layer of bureaucracy a lot of times. We're two different eyes looking at two different things. And there is a misconception about what we actually do between the local and the upper. And sometimes the regional level of government is being tasked with doing things at the local level and vice versa. And it becomes a bit of a dog's breakfast. And the biggest frustration I hear when people call me is like, I don't know who to talk to. And even in the town of Grimsby, each ward has two aldermen. So if one doesn't answer, they go to the other one. If they don't answer, then you go to the mayor. And then you go to the region, all the way up the chain. But it can be frustrating knowing who does what.
So just to finish out here, thanks for that. Councillor Quirk has also served as past director for the Grimsby Chamber of Commerce. So obviously, there's where your conservatism comes in, being good with money, and pro-business. Nothing wrong with that. Treasurer of the Happening at the 40 Festival, okay, and past president of the Kinsman Club. Does that mean Kinsman? Does that mean you're Catholic?
No, Kinsman is non-denominational.
Oh, that's the Knights of Columbus.
Knights of Columbus. Yeah. No, Kinsman is the only service organization that is Canada only. Kin Canada is up there with Rotary, Lions, all the other Knights of Columbus, but is the only one that is Canada-centric. There are no Kinsman clubs outside of Canada.
Oh. Served on the Grimsby Power Board of Directors. What's that?
So Grimsby has its own local distribution company, Grimsby Power. Okay. I served as a board director there.
As in other words, the electric company. Okay. and the Grimsby Downtown Revitalization Task Force, and the Grimsby Chamber of Commerce. So I'm just going to run through this quick because I want to get to the conversation. But, man, you're sitting on a lot of committees, huh?
Yes. So
because they pay extra money to be on committees.
No, they don't pay any extra money to be on committees. But I'll tell you a little story. When you first get elected at the region, the clerk sends out a little package, explains the expense policy. Or lack thereof. Okay. It explains what we do on our first meeting, and it explains which committees you can join and which committees are there. So
you applied for all of them?
Well, no, it says check which ones you're interested in. And I'm thinking, as a first-time counselor, no one's actually told me. I assumed that committees were sort of assigned by seniority, right? If you've been there long enough, you get your choice, and you just assume that's how it would work. I did not realize till about halfway through the meeting that they pretty much put anyone who asked to be on the committees, like with the exception of the police board and the housing board. The ones that, all the other ones, you could basically put your name forward and they'd put your name on. So it's basically halfway down the list before I realized that you could withdraw at any time. But
Corporate
I will tell you
services.
this, as a first-time counselor, it has been a great learning experience to see pretty much every facet of the organization. The region is a billion-dollar corporation, and being on all those committees has given me the opportunity to see
corporate services, planning and development. You're all still on these. Public health, public works, audit, budget review, Burgoyne Bridge Replacement Project Task Force.
Yes.
Boo. CAO Recruitment Committee.
I hope we don't have to meet anymore because we just recruited our new CAO. So.
Corporate Communications Subcommittee. Corporate Labor Relations Strategy Subcommittee. Well, I should say that you're chair and chair of the audit, vice chair of corporate services, vice chair of Burgoyne Bridge, vice chair of corporate labor relations strategy subcommittee, economic development advisory panel, intermunicipal transit steering committee, the NPCA authority, procedural bylaw review committee, regional active transport subcommittee, smarter Niagara steering committee, transportation steering committee chair, and waste management planning steering committee. Wow. That's a lot of time, man.
It is.
Are you running again? Have you decided?
I will put my name forward to run for regional councilor again. Absolutely.
Before we get started, I just want to give you an opportunity because we don't know each other that well. And again, thank you very much for the advanced faith, blind faith coming in.
I always feel comfortable walking out. So
there you go. If you could just take a couple minutes, take as long as you want. Tell us a little bit about you. And, I don't mind if you get personal. I'm kind of, I want to know what makes you tick. I want to know like who your friends are, like what kind of people
I have no friends.
What kind of people you hang around with. Like you claim to be hilarious, so you got to have a good sense of humor if you roll with Tony Quirk. But just introduce yourself and kind of tell us what kind of guy you are. What's important to you?
I could start on a couple different routes there. I grew up in Grimsby. It's my hometown, so I'm a small town boy. Went to GSS, attended Mac, lived in Grimsby pretty much my whole life. Persuaded my wife to move there when we got engaged, and so I'm now raising my two kids. Catherine is 14 and Finnegan is 12 in Grimsby, and love it. So with all the involvement that my parents had, both my dad and my mom were involved with King Canada. My mom was a cadet. My father was a kinsman, a life member. So sort of that desire to give back to the community, serve the community, be involved, be a volunteer, that's kind of ingrained in my blood. So I do what I can around the town to help out as much as possible. Now, my dad and mom came over from England in 1969. I have a bit of a British background and British heritage, and love all the British humor. So I have a very absurd sense of humor. Monty Python, that sort of take on life, the respectful disrespect, as it will, that's involved in a lot of those flying circus cartoons. I grew up with those. Real big sci-fi nerd, geek, whatever you want to call it. I absolutely.
What's sci-fi, like Trek and
all of it,
Star Wars,
all of it, absolutely 100%. I don't know if you saw when I rolled in with my Jeep. I've got my Stormtrooper Jeep covers.
I saw that it was bright blue.
Absolutely, and
Conservative blue.
I have been involved with the Conservative Party since 1994, so first provincially and then federally, and still involved to a certain extent today. So
how old are you?
I am. What year is it? I will be 47 in December.
Okay. My first election was 93 in Niagara Center. I ran against Gibby Parent.
Okay,
Speaker
absolutely.
of the House, which you probably know.
Federally, absolutely, yeah.
I ran with the idea that I wouldn't have to do a thing. I was a paper candidate. The party, Vesna recruited me. Thanks very much, Greg. Scared the life out of me. And then Pete Marina from Seahow talked me into coming to the debate. Terry St. Adam was running for the Conservatives. Love Terry. Red Dog from back in the day. My parents knew him when he was with the Bikers. Terry came up and said, Jimmy, what do you do? Well, he was a little bit more explicit than that. What are you doing here? I said, I'm the Green Party guy. He says, no, really? Never. Oh, come on. I'll show you how this is done, right? Took me into Seahow. I don't know if Pete was the moderator then. It was my first time in front of a microphone. I drew the short straw to speak first. They slid the mic over to me, and my mouth moved, and nothing came out. And I realized I was scared straight, and I didn't. It's never happened since. I went to Toastmasters and did my 10 speeches and really got comfortable on the lectern, and then did a short stint at CHSC back in the day before it folded, and conquered my fear of public speaking. I'm still kind of an introvert, even though I do a lot of extroverted things. So I soaked the chair. And then coming down Forks Road, I remember I was driving my Delta 88 Brougham, 1984 Delta 88 Brougham, dual fuel, gas and propane. Arms out the window screaming at the top of my lungs, steering with my down a gravel road, just elation, like I've never been so high in all my life, over conquering my greatest fear. And I thought, okay, if that's all it takes to feel like this, I'm gonna do more things I'm scared of. So
I was the same way. I absolutely despised public speaking. Right up through high school and university, I was not a public speaker. I did not ever envision myself getting involved in politics. I was a math and science guy. I went to Mac for engineering initially, and I did not think that politics was even in the realm of what I was going to be doing. So I am happy that I can speak publicly, and I try to encourage with my kids, because I know they hate public speaking, but I said, once you can speak publicly, sort of the world's your oyster, because you never have to be afraid of getting up in front of a small group, a big group. My daughter is a reader at church, so I give her full credit for doing that. And my son has ran and won his position as the class rep in the local, or his local school. So I'm saying, okay, you guys take that as far as it can, because if you can speak in public, make yourself come across clearly. I said I don't always do that, but there is a great opportunity if you can do that.
Well, you do a lot better than some of the guys down at the region, I'll give you that. And, I hate to say this, but I feel sorry for them when they get up there and they can't get their ideas out, or they're playing with stuff. And just, it's not theater. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get your thing out and sit the hell down. We don't need this filibustering and this don't beat around. Don't say the same thing 6 times to the chair. The chair's busy. We got to go. We got a curfew. So yeah, I got a lot of respect for anyone that does it, but I kind of feel embarrassed for them a little bit when I'm looking at them and they're going around in circles, and you can see that they're nervous or they're completely red, their whole face, So, well, I respect what you all do, but having a voice that you can control and breathe through the fear and all that kind of stuff that you've obviously conquered already is admirable. So thanks for that. So, I don't know where to start with you, bro.
Well, you started off with saying a couple things about in your opening comments about people in politics and personalities, and going back to myself, I try not to take the personality out of politics. If we disagree on a policy, I would hope that you can sit and have a beer and discuss the pros and cons of it.
I like that.
I have often seen, and unfortunately it's the case, where people equate the person with the policy, and then they dislike the policy, so they dislike the person, or they question the integrity of the person. And we see that. We'll go get in some conversation about the NPCA, right? You disagree with the policy direction, so your lash out argument is, well, then you're corrupt. Well, that's not fair. It's not just. But you try to have a conversation with someone, and if they don't want to hear your side of the argument, then you're saying, okay, you have chosen to make it personal. That's fine. I try not to make it personal with anyone. I've lost too many elections and to ever take anything too personally. But I have. I'll take another step back. When I went to university, I started when I was 17. I finished grade 12 and went straight to Mac. So I was young to begin with, and met a whole bunch of guys in first year university. We all lived on campus. We were all kicked off of campus at the end of that year, but that's a whole other story. Those guys I still get together with once a year. After 30 years later, we're still getting together on a regular basis. And they run the gambit of political thinking. They run the gambit of where they are in their lives, work-related, family life, whole gamut. And we get together. It's like no time has passed. And we have discussions. And, of course, a lot of it gets centered on me because I'm the elected one in the group. But I take a lot of it on the chin. But I have one guy. We get into very heated, argumentative debates. But at the end of the day, we're sitting down and having a beer, right? We don't let it get personal. And that's where I think a lot of people who look at politics and politicians and they automatically assume they're in it for themselves, they're self-serving. I think that is a narrative that has been sort of festered by the constant campaigning. And the constant campaigning plan is, I'm going to run against you. You're an incumbent, so I'm going to tell you that everything that's going wrong in the world is wrong. Everything that you're doing is wrong. You have done nothing right, and then I'm going to run and fix all those problems, right? So I'm creating the narrative, which is what people who want to either replace an incumbent government or replace an incumbent municipal politician is to say, I think that everything you're doing is wrong, and they're never going to give any credit for the things that are going right. And often what's happening more and more now is that the media and the press are picking sides, and they are either enabling that narrative or they are defending the indefensible because there's nothing to these sort of allegations of this story. I find going to the region, and even with all the committees I am, this is a part-time position as a regional councillor, is we go to the region, and there is a lot of work that we get done. We pass a lot of reports. We get a lot of things moving. None of it is sexy. We build roads. We put pipes in the ground. We try to spend the taxpayers' money responsibly. Sometimes we ban
smoking in parks.
Sometimes we don't do a good job. Sometimes we do. We do a couple things. We do a couple things like that. We do good things, but they're not sexy, so no one covers it. No one cares, right? And then we do a few things incorrectly. We go over budget on a $100 million bridge. We go over budget on a
$50 million bridge.
Combined sewer overflow. And then that becomes, well, you're always going over budget. Well, no, if you look at our variance account, we'll talk to our public works, talk to our accounting, there's multiple projects where we've come under budget. No one writes those stories, right? So I think ultimately we live in a pretty nice part of the world, right? People who live in Niagara come here and they choose to live here. We have a great place. We have a great quality of life. We have great recreation. We have some great employers. We need more employers.
Safe community.
We have generally safe communities, and people want to live here. So the two narratives don't always jive, right? And I always find with people who want to run sort of negative style campaigns, you're wrong, you're corrupt, they really have nothing to offer because they've decided to make it a personal thing rather than a policy political discussion. So you say, okay, well, we're toss the bums out. I'm happy to be tossed out, as I said, but if you're going to replace me, what are you going to do differently? What am I doing wrong in your eyes that you would like to see differently? Because I'm open to suggestions. I'm open to discussions. Often we'll get into very basic things. Like, for example, there is a group in Grimsby that does not want the GO train to come there. I made it very clear when I was running I was supporting the GO train expansion. Like, this is something I'm very involved in. That's why I'm chair of the Transportation Steering Committee. That's why I'm very much behind the intermunicipal transit push, because I know that those are small pieces in the bigger GO train pie. So if you're running to not get the GO train in Grimsby, that's a legitimate policy discussion, and we can have that. But it's not going to change my feeling on it. I know how important it is for Niagara. I know how important it is for Grimsby.
Yeah, it seems like one of those things that really doesn't have a downside.
Well,
I mean, other than the guys that are complaining that we're going to put another track close to the, it should be up on the sky, up on the escarpment, not down where the tender fruit land is, and tack it onto the side of the QEW so that we don't have to. I don't know, but there's not many people that would disagree, myself included. So mass transit or effective transit is important.
Well, let me tell you the downside. If you live in Grimsby, and you've lived in Grimsby for a long time, which a lot of people have, and you see the changes, because our tender fruit land is gone. There's nothing below the escarpment pretty much anymore, even with the greenbelt that is significant in any way, shape, or form. You see the greater intensity that's being mandated by the province, now 60%. It was 40% when we did our official plan of infilling, meaning we have to have a 40% intensification. It's now 60%. You see all those high rises going up at Casablanca, and you say, this isn't the town I grew up on. I want to be able to see the lake. I want to be able to see the escarpment. I want the nice views. Right. And so there are people who see the downside, and with the GO train coming, that area is going to be even more intensified. And I grew up there. Like, I literally grew up at the corner of Livingston and Emily Street. I'm 100 meters from where the station is going to be. That area is going to change significantly. But at the end of the day, bringing that GO train in and making it easier for people to get to and from jobs is important for Grimsby to survive economically. We can't have a town that doesn't have the ability to get to work and employment.
What's the argument against GO?
The intensification that comes with it, right?
Oh, okay.
And a lot of people don't like that, especially in the small towns.
But
St. Catharines and Niagara Falls will probably do it.
Intensification too. So what are they going to do? There's too much infill. And then you get the grade assessment growth too. So your taxes should be a little bit more stable if you have the intensification.
Those are all great arguments. They fall flat on the emotional side of things. Because you also look at, even with what's going on down there, we have been able to access a great amount of waterfront to complete our waterfront trail that the town of Grimsby would never be able to afford if we just went out and buy it. But because it's being developed, they can take that as part of their 5% parkland dedication. So we are now getting this wonderful shore-protected waterfront trail that is going to be connecting one end of Grimsby to the other.
Paid by the developer?
Paid by the developer.
For the most part, the improvements, I mean.
Yeah, well, the land's part of the 5% dedication. The improvements are all included.
So you don't pay for that either.
So so we are we're very fortunate that that's part of it. But again, that's just one issue. There's other issues that come and go where people we get some other issues where there's the push and pull between the region and the town. The town has closed off 2 of their mountain accesses for truck traffic, so all the truck traffic is coming down the one regional road, Mountain Road and Mountain Street in Grimsby. And, of course, that's all truck traffic right through our downtown. We've had accidents, we've had fatalities, we've had other issues there. So trying to get that rectified involves allowing for a permanent cross-escarpment route, which will have to be eventually at Bartlett Avenue in Grimsby. That's been a push and pull between Beamsville and Grimsby for a long time. Where's it going to go? Where are you going to do it? But I think ultimately Bartlett has been identified as the proper route. The region is pushing that forward. There's lots of people in Grimsby who don't want it there. So you say, okay, as representing you, I can tell you why it's important as the Transportation Steering Committee chair, and tell you why it's important in the overall plan for the region, but that doesn't satisfy the people who are going to either have their homes expropriated or all that because this new route's going through. So it's tricky. So
let's just dive in. I'll just hit the things that I struggle with most. As you know, I'm a multi-time Green Party candidate.
Well, I can understand why you
because I respect democracy. And there's nothing better than voting for yourself. I know that you've experienced that before, but putting that X beside your own name, and I don't know anyone else that can say that. Pretty much any of my friends, anyway.
Well, let's just stop there. In the last election, municipally, Grimsby had internet voting, so I was able just to click the X beside my name.
No, you can't do that because you need to take a picture of the ballot.
Well, I know that's illegal. I took a screenshot.
I know that's illegal to take it, but I always do it. I always tweet it out afterwards. Look at this. I'm looking for my last one. The last one I found was Jennifer Meridian. I'm looking for the last Jim Fannon one. Last time I ran, I did that as well, but don't tell anyone. One time, the returning officer made me a photocopy. She liked me so much. And she says, I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm going to photocopy this. And actually, because I said, I want a ballot. Just give me a ballot. No, I'll give you a photocopy. And she blew it up for me and stuff. I got so crazy passionate about this Thundering Waters thing.
Absolutely.
And I know it's still going on. And I'd love it if you just said, hey, we fucked that one up. I mean, you don't have to say that, but I mean,
no,
it's just we didn't lobby. Then you got caught lobbying. Then you hired blah blah blah. But I just want to go directly at the perception of conflict of interest, or nepotism, or whatever you call it. The two things that I've got a problem with. Number one, Barrick getting hired from the board to the NPCA doesn't seem cool to me, and perception is everything. And then D'Angelo takes a leave. His company gets the contract to come up with the terms of reference for the position, and then he fucking gets the position. Okay, I really can't. And then not only does he get that position, He goes from the CEO of the NPCA to the chair of the region. Like, there's a little part of me, and I think there's a little part of a lot of people that are going, hey, I want my piece.
Sure.
I want my favoritism. How do I get on that board? How do I get a little piece of this?
I can understand that. So we'll start with a couple things. First of all, there's nothing untoward about a board member applying for a position in any board, anywhere, municipally or provincially. No. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Conflict of interest.
No, it's not a conflict.
You're on the board, and
that is not what conflict of interest says.
You benefit from any position on the board.
That is not what conflict of interest says.
What's it say?
So conflict of interest says if you vote for something, if you vote for something or speak to something where you have a direct pecuniary interest, that's what is all about conflict of interest.
You can vote with the conflict. You just say I'm in conflict and I'm voting.
You don't know. If you have a conflict, you don't get to vote.
Oh.
You don't get to vote. You don't get to
declare it.
No, you declare it and you don't vote. And if it's a closed session item, no. So this is important to educate people because people have a misconception of what's involved with it. So again, we go back to the fact that regional councillors are part-time positions. All of them, except myself, I'm fortunate enough that I've retired, they have real jobs outside of politics. So there's nothing that stops anyone from applying for any position at anywhere, any shape or form, whether you're on the board or not. That's not a conflict of interest. What would be a conflict of interest if Dave Barrick then voted to hire himself? That would be a direct conflict of interest. So applying for a position, going through the interview process with people who know you, absolutely, that is a benefit for sure. But I'm sure
I guess it's perception, right?
I'm sure that there are lots of people who've gotten jobs because they know their friends and they're getting recommended, and that happens often in all industries. I'm not saying
it pisses everyone off,
but references,
especially when you're in government.
But
then
references matter. So that's the first part of it. Secondly, I wasn't on the board when David was hired, but I do know from talking to people who were there, some of them are no longer on the board, they asked David to apply. It wasn't that David said, I'm going to apply for this. He was actually invited to apply for the job. So that makes it a little bit more legitimate in my mind. If the people who were tasked with recruiting these positions were asking various people who they knew had the skill sets to apply for it, I think that is legitimate as well. So that's something that happens. You have it at boards of Chamber of Commerce boards. You have it at hospital boards. People who are on the board become the CEO or the chief operating officer. This happens, and it's usually because the people around the table have a certain comfort level with the person that they're hiring. So that's definitely legitimate.
Yeah, fairly. The guy that's on the board also has intimate knowledge of the workings of
So there's definitely a subject matter expert. If you are someone who is managing the general governance of the entire organization and you're asked, what do you think is going right or wrong, you already know where the direction that you want the board wants you to go. So it definitely gives you an advantage.
So why do you think guys like me who are fairly well educated still, and like when I read the Code of Conduct and it says, no member shall benefit from anything from being on this. And then I go, well, duh, that job is a benefit.
No. So again, you have this problem, and this problem is being perpetuated out there, is that if you have someone who is voting for something that gives them a benefit, that is different than someone who earns a benefit by being on the board. And in fact, David took a leave of absence to apply for the job, which is legitimate.
Why would you have to do that?
Again, so there's no perceived conflict or otherwise, right? So you take a leave of absence, you apply for the job, you get the job, you're not voting to hire yourself, and you're not using that position on the board to get the other position, right? It's
okay.
So.
And by the way, I got nothing against
No,
Dave
I'm saying that there's people who want to make it into an issue that it is, and I think a lot of it is petty personal politics more than it is actual real concerns. Because I will tell you, in the time I've been there, I've watched David in his capacity as Director of Operations, and prior to that, Director of Corporate Services, basically turn around our parks to the point where they're now making money. Before, we've had to subsidize our parks, our 4 main parks. I've seen him implement the strategic plan and bring a level of professionalism in terms of policy, human resources, procedures that were lacking in the organization beforehand. So no one can fault his job performance in any way, shape, or form. So now what they want to do is say, okay, yeah, we can't fault your job performance because you're a consummate professional, but I am going to fault how you got the job in the first place. Well, that's, again, disingenuous because this all happened before the last election, and he got reelected. So people knew what happened. The people in Port Colborne reelected him and sent him to be both a regional rep, knowing at the time he got the job at the NPCA. So I think if the people of Port Colborne are okay with it, I'm okay with it too. So
I wonder how much people actually pay attention to that kind of stuff. And I just want to say I don't know Dave Barrick. Yeah. I know what I see of him because now I have to watch all these freaking council meetings because I want to know what's going on. It's not, you're right, it's not sexy, but I watch town council too a lot at the times, and especially, I've been known to show up and speak against or for certain things too. So, but I find myself siding with a Tony Quirk and a Dave Barrick and an Eddie Petrowski more and more now, more so than whoever it was back in the day, Brian McMullen, Debbie Zimmerman, Stan's a real estate agent, Augustine, Dave. Oh, man. If you're just going to run for chair, stand up and tell us. Don't make every speech that you do a fucking campaign speech for chair, because we all know you're running. And, I don't know that it's a big secret anywhere. But, it's funny because when Barrick... what I appreciate most about Barrick is his haircut, because he wears a much more aggressive hair than I could. I would like to wear it like that, but it's just a little too aggressive. He's got pretty good hair. I've heard the Pee Wee references. When I watch that stuff, and I've never even seen Dave other than at council, I would just burn with anger. And I've got this thing, and I think I'm about the only human being that I know that will admit I'm trying to manage the hate that I was born with in my heart. When you just look at someone and you go, like, everyone's got that. That is a little bit of hate. If Whoopi Goldberg opens her mouth one more time, it's not because she's black or anything else, or is she gay? I don't know. It's got nothing. It's just I don't like her, and I've never met her. I don't know anything about her. It's not reasonable for me to have a hard on or a hate on for Whoopi Goldberg or Dave Barrick. But I'm telling you, every time I watch that kid who's probably my age, stand up, my blood used to boil, because I'm thinking nepotism, favoritism. He got the job by, I don't want to get too graphic. And then I think there's a little part of me that I'll admit, and I think there's a little part of everyone that says, "Hey, I want my piece.
Yeah, no,
I want my little. I want a $150,000 job that I wasn't really qualified for. Too. I'm not saying he's not, because I don't know. But I think we all have that little bit of us. But now I don't suffer with that so much, and I didn't feel it for Tony Quirk because I didn't really know you so much. And Andy, I think, is fucking entertaining, straight up, and he's always the brightest guy in the room. I don't care how many people are in that room, he's one of the most intelligent guys there. Now, that also gets him in a lot of trouble, and I get that. But I get a lot of time for a lot of you guys down there, but there's still these guys, and Barrick used to be one of them. He's not so much anymore, because he's making so much fucking sense to me on the code of conduct, on so many issues where I'm going, damn. Like, when a Jimmy Fannon starts agreeing with guys like Ben Shapiro, I'm like, hang on a second. He's not there's anything against Jews, but he's a pro-life Jew. Like, he's just not my group of guys, but he makes so much sense when it's coming to this Antifa and the freedom of speech and stuff like this. And I don't share his political views, but I'm looking at a guy like Ben Shapiro, and when Jim Fannon starts agreeing with a guy like Ben Shapiro, who is an extremist on the right probably, he's so fucking bright, though. How can you argue with him? And it's the same I kind of feel with a guy like Dave Barrick. I've come around on, because when you guys were talking about the code of conduct, Selena Volpatti, again, she was on my show when we did the sessions on the river. I don't think I was prepared for Selena. She is bright, and she's no pushover. Well, you will not steamroll Selena Volpatti. And I mean, this is what makes a politician good. When you can get a host like me that says, hey, what about this? And she says, I don't care. We had an RFP. It was recommended by talking about D'Angelo. He was recommended by the hiring committee. Who am I to stand up and say, what? I'm not voting for that guy.
So there's a couple things I will tell you. When I sat down the first time at council, Selena is my seatmate. So I've got to know Selena quite well. My only real experience before at that point was when she ran against my buddy Bart Maves in the provincial election. So I had no real... I'm not prepared for the warm, wonderful woman who is...
No, she ran Liberal? Bart was Conservative?
Yeah.
Okay, so they literally ran against each other as candidates.
So we have a lot of fun because she knows I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Conservative. I know that she's a bleeding heart pinko Liberal. But my wife calls her my council wife. So she's a lot of fun.
She sits beside you?
She sits beside me, and she and I have...
Except when you guys do this, do you have this, the chair cast put in this thing where you all got to switch seats?
That was Bob Gill. We do that once a year, and it's all random. Yeah.
Well, you can hang that on your re-election campaign platform.
Absolutely.
For chair. I'm sure he's running for chair. You put it on his chair.
Musical chairs. But no, Selena's fantastic. I love working with her, and she and I temper each other a little bit. There are times when, as you said, you want to stand up and start raging at the world, and she's like, let it die. Or I'll see her going to hit the speaker button, and so, really, Selena, is this the one you want to speak to? And she'll do the same thing to me. So we do have a good tempering thing. And there are times when we adamantly disagree on policy, and we will debate it, and we'll let the votes fall where they may. And that's the nice thing about the region. And then we go out and have a drink afterwards. So she's I always say that it's good to have someone who will give you a gut check every now and then. Selena's my gut check because, as I said, she's definitely, and she and I are not on the same side of the political spectrum, but she is a common sense person. And that's, I think a lot of what you're talking about is trying to get to a certain level of common sense within the municipal government. And it doesn't have to be a left thing. It doesn't have to be a right thing. I've supported things that are not necessarily conservative minded. But we're a municipal government. And I would say municipal governments are there to spend money. And all we ask is that, all I ask of staff and what people should ask of a politician is spend it responsibly, spend it wisely, and don't take more than you need. And unfortunately, I see that happening more and more, that mandate creep where we're trying to fund things that we shouldn't be involved in, or there's a lack of respect for the taxpayers whose money it is initially, or we've got this money that was given to us a grant, now we got to find a way to throw it out the door as quick as possible. And those are things that I think get the general public upset when it comes to taxes and money and over budget this and then, that's where the problem is. So if we can provide the service at a reasonable price that people know, and again, hopefully it's not the sexy stuff. You turn on your tap, your water works, right? You go down the road, you don't get damaged by a pothole.
And you know what, just sorry to interrupt with your flow, because I love a guy who can talk. I think
I was told I had to fill 2 hours.
It's a fucking miracle when you turn on a tap and it doesn't kill you, right?
It's
a miracle when your light switch goes on and lights come on.
You think about where that water comes from, right?
Lake Gibson?
In our case, in Grimsby, it's Lake Ontario.
Right.
So there's a lot of people are getting it from Lake Erie. There's you guys are getting it from Lake, which ultimately is from the Niagara River. The fact that you can drink that and it can keep you healthy and you're not getting sick, that is amazing. And we have great staff that look after it.
It's
right?
a straight up fucking miracle.
Amazing.
And you don't get how many people, doesn't matter what they get paid. And we all bitch about the taxes, and we talk about the salaries of some of these people, and sometimes it's justified. But these are a lot of bright people that, we can't keep our car running or change spark plugs or keep our own backyard clean, but we're going to fix up the sewage treatment plants.
When you look at our water quality reports that the region gets, because we get a report card every year to say what we are top marks across the board in our water quality for the entire region. And I think that speaks volume to the amount of money that has been invested in the past. For the entire region, we get top marks.
Who does?
The region does. We provide the water. We wholesale it. So
top marks compared to who, though?
Oh, to the whole province.
Oh, province. So, you said region. That's
sorry. Our region gets top marks for the whole province. And that's because of the work that previous governments have done to invest in their water quality. And we also, it's a twofold thing. Water in, water out, waste out. We've got to make sure that we're not polluting the place that we're taking the water from. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. It is going to be a big challenge for us right now because we have not invested as much as we need to keep up with demand, and not as much as we've needed to keep up with the aging infrastructure. So that's going to be a challenge, and we're going to be talking about that tonight at our capital budget. What are we putting aside to make sure that our water system, our wholesale water system, is top-notch stuff?
And I don't have a problem paying for water. In fact, I wouldn't have a problem if the water prices doubled, because I think that we're not paying the true cost of the infrastructure and the labor that it actually takes to keep this stuff clean. Same with hydro. If the true cost of hydro, you include the pollution, you include all it would be double. So, and so if you have a true cost accounting, Greg Vesna, thank you very much, a triple bottom line accounting, your prices on the dirty stuff, like your coal and your gasoline, and as you get cleaner, they should get cheaper. And water is one of those. We're gonna. There's already wars started over water. Forget oil. This is the most precious natural resource on the planet right now, only because it's so plentiful. And there's got to be a desalination plant coming for areas of the world where the ocean's right there. It's got to be a little bit more cost effective, but I have no problem paying the true cost when it comes out of the. I don't like the idea, okay, well, you got to double because it's going out the sewer, but I know the sewer from. How else do you meter the sewer water?
So within the region, we actually do pretty close cost recovery on our production.
You think it pays for itself?
We pretty much pay for itself
Okay.
in terms of operations. Our rates are there to make sure that we recover our true cost. Systems need to be. We need some redundancy because we need to replace one system with another while we're doing it. So these are things that are going to be coming online, and we're going to be talking about that tonight.
Tune in live, 6:30, NiagaraRegion.ca.
Best TV out there.
Oh, yeah. And I don't, I tweeted out the other day, elected politicians, the microphone is not for you to practice your stand-up routine. You're not funny. And Tony Quirk comes in right away. I just added him as a friend just not long ago. He's like, I'm hilarious. I have seen no evidence of that so far.
Oh, are you kidding? You haven't watched all of it. Oh, so far today. Well, I'm on my best behavior today. Just wait.
Okay, good.
And plus, you've only given me water, so how do you expect me to be funny with that? Like, if that was vodka, we'd be all over this.
This is Kettle One I'm drinking now. It's Ricochet water because I don't drink tap water. I'm sorry, Tony Quirk. Ricochet water, the best water on the planet. I don't drink. Hey, I will drink tap water. I like the taste of Ricochet, and it's not RO. You know RO, when they strip all the kelp and the sodium and everything out of it? This is like an ESL technology. I'm not sure exactly. It was a NASA technology. The cooks scooped it up, and they're on knee-hand drive or something for just a shameless plug. It's the best tasting water you've ever had, and I'm glad that you're drinking it. I'm sorry I gave you plastic because that's just not fucking cool. Ricochet water.
Well, I just want to make it real clear because you give me a solo cup, so it does look like I'm sitting here chugging my draft beer. But some of the other comments you were making about the different politicians there, and some that make your blood boil, and there are some that are. We get accused all the time, and it happens on Facebook that we're self-serving. Of course, we are.
Or corrupt. I heard you.
Absolutely.
My buddy there the other
we're
day.
corrupt.
Didn't last long.
And my feeling is this: is that anyone who thinks I'm corrupt, take your proof, go to the police. I'm an open book, right? Like we don't get into this to try to pat our pockets. And in fact, at the municipal level, it's pretty hard to do at the municipal level, as far as I can tell. But at the end of the day, the whole idea of being self-serving, we have to be self-promoting. That, without question, that's part of the job, right? Otherwise, we don't get reelected to say, Tony Quirk, what have you done for me lately? You have to be self-promoting. Self-serving is a little bit different because it implies that we're not there for the right reasons. And I think people start out always for the right reasons. I think you can become very jaded. I've only been at the region 3 years, and I can feel myself on times being a little bit jaded. We get bogged down in people who are pontificating, and we get bogged down in people who are trying to score cheap political points or people who are already planning their re-election campaign. And that, if it turns someone who's stuck in it off and someone who would respect it off, I can see what it would do to the general public while they're there. But ultimately, I don't think that people are corrupt. I think there are hypocrites among us.
We're all hypocrites. Every single one of us.
I think what happens, and the thing that gets me more frustrated with some of my colleagues, is when they'll get up and stand up and say, I've got to fight for this, this, and this because of these reasons, and then the following week they've completely changed their mind on a different subject and they're fighting against it. But you were like, can you at least not hold your principles? Like, let's stick to the same principles as opposed to just sort of like throwing it out each time.
But
right?
you gotta have time and respect for anybody that says, I changed my mind. I've done some research. I mean, you sit beside Selena, so she's giving you the left wing of the argument. And this is, I'm so frustrated right now, and Donald Trump has brought this to the forefront for all of us. The gap between the left and the right is huge right now, and it's getting wider. It's never been wider than it is right now. And I'm learning a lot of lessons from Donald Trump right now. But here's the bottom line. The liberals have a personality type, and it's very predictable. If you run them through the big 5 personality type, like the psychology test, they all come out on the same. They come out with very much the same traits: openness and agreeableness. Not so much conscientiousness is the industriousness and the dutifulness and stuff like that. The conservatives are a total different brain wiring. They think about everything differently. They like their borders. They like strong borders. So their Conservatives are mostly against better immigration policy, like tighter controls, where the Liberals are like, nah, come on, let them in. This is so common, and very few people, I think, get it. The Liberals invent the businesses. They're the artists. They have interests in ideas. They're probably more prone to be an intellectual, teachers, professors, stuff like that. Not to say that the other side isn't, but the Conservatives, and so these guys are the entrepreneurs. They start the businesses. They're the creative people. And then they run the businesses right into the ground because they don't have the personality type. The Conservatives do. They have the personality type to be managers, to be good with money, to be dutiful and industrious and whatever. And the bottom line is this. If we don't fucking talk to each other, if Selena doesn't say, not this one, you know why? Or when you're having a beer, go, hey, you know what? That's bullshit. Housing this and that, blah, 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 blah. And then you go, oh. Like, did you ever have those aha moments? You ever come back to council and go, she turned me. So, or I learned, and I got a lot of time, and I like to put myself in that category. I'm not always the guy that knows everything. I'm not the smartest guy ever. And I have a natural tendency to listen to people. I've had to learn to do that a lot because I talk a lot, and when you're talking, you're not listening. But I've come around on a lot of things to say, my left-wing position, it's a little stubborn and a little inflexible. And if we don't fucking talk together, the left and the right, we need two wings. Birds don't fly with just a left or just a right wing. I love that analogy. And we're good at different things. It's just like men and women. Oh, my God, don't get me started on the alt-feminist right now, where everyone's hate men. We got here together, okay? So let's just not forget that we need each other to move forward.
So I'll take a step back and say, yes, I have changed my mind. It's usually not week to week. I have changed my mind on certain reports and certain recommendations that come forward because we've had a fulsome discussion. And I've changed my mind. I've gone into it with one plan and then listened to the debate. And I actually consider myself very flexible on these things because there are oftentimes reasons for it. Now, I will say I'm one of the guys that actually reads all the reports before I go into committee. There are a few of us that do that. So that, and there are guys that do that and they ask the questions of staff and they've read the report and they're expecting an answer, or there's guys that have not read the report and they've asked a question that
burns you when they stand up and you go, you fucking idiot, it's in the report, you've been here 4 terms.
I couldn't say that because there'd be a code of conduct complaint. But I will say that there are times when I think, go back to the whole thing. You try not to pigeonhole people left and right, and I understand that this is the way things are going, but you want to make sure that you have the best information in front of you. I'm one of the people who generally puts a lot of faith in our staff to come up with good recommendations. No, I don't. I disagree with that statement. I think we have good professional people in our staff. I think we have good people who...
You've also got some... That's where the corruption is.
Let me just tell you this. I think we have some people who are doing really good work within our organization. We're there as a governance model to scrutinize that work. And that means that we can look at the recommendations, and I've never been afraid to put forward an alternate recommendation or to turn down a recommendation, because I think that even our staff can get into a rut and they see it one way. And there's no other alternative to look at, or they don't want to look at other alternatives.
Or they don't have a Selena sitting beside them to straighten them out.
Or if we try to get them to look at other alternatives, they don't want to go. It's not as easy to go that route. So I think that when you're sitting around the council table, you try to think you go in there with an open mind. Often I don't. Often there's things that I have my fixation on, and I want to make sure that these things get resolved. But you have to have a certain amount of flexibility to get anything done, because at least even around our council, 31 members, right? We are not, despite what people will say, we're not along party lines, right? We have alliances, absolutely, but there are people that are working with each other to try to accomplish certain goals. But it's not a hard and fast rule. So you have to make sure that you have a working relationship with just about everyone around the council table.
If you say that's not a hard and fast rule one more time, every screen, every recorded vote that comes up, it's the same people on the same issues all the time. No. And you know what burns my ass most is when the fucking mayors vote in a block. There you got 12 unelected regional councillors who with 31, so 12, you only need 5 or 6 more votes to carry the fucking thing. That's, you know what? If I had my way, if I run for the region, I'll run on 2 platforms. 1, first we take the mayors off, and 2, then we abolish the fucking region. What do you think?
Well, it would have to be a 2-step process, but I think that they are elected in their capacity as mayors and regional councillors. They get to do their
mayors, yeah. Right.
Governance is a whole different discussion.
Yeah, we don't even want to. I beat that thing to death. Yeah. And now that One Niagara's dead, and I know you're probably a proponent of it, but
no,
I hate One Niagara.
I
like the 12 municipality.
I've never had any interest in One Niagara.
No.
Actually.
Oh, it's Brian Height. Sorry, I don't know how to get you guys confused.
Please don't. But my point with the, I'm probably one of the only people who thinks that we actually need more politicians, because I think we end up getting fewer and fewer politicians. They have larger and larger constituencies, and they don't know the people they represent anymore.
And then you get
right. So
you don't have as good access as well.
You don't
and that's
have
why I didn't like that
right.
dual duty thing. Dual duty, double direct, whatever they call it.
Dual duty, double direct.
No.
Yeah,
what a waste of time talking about something that will never. It couldn't even fucking. Oh my God! So St. Catharines passes it, comes to the region, they rubber stamp it, they send it back to for the triple majority. Did you know this? I was on 12 agendas. And I actually was added to 12 agendas to speak against it. It comes to St. Catharines first.
And they killed it again.
And I wasn't. Hey, I was one of 12 presenters, mostly against, and I did my part and put it out there for a long time. Governance, and I was so glad. But now we've got a lame duck mayor in St. Catharines that can't get anything done because the lines have been drawn pretty much like he's a vote short now to get anything done. So he's going to finish out his term with the support of council.
All mayors have to deal with that, right? Because they have to make sure they have a majority of their council supporting them to get things done. But with respect to dual duty, in Grimsby, I actually have a seat at the council table. I can't vote. I can't make motions. I'm not on the council. But when they sit around the council table, there is a seat there for the regional councillor. Oh. So previous to this, in the old council chambers, there used to be a table. Debbie Zimmerman used to sit at the table. And then when they did the whole new council chambers, they made room for her to sit at the end. And now that I'm the regional council, there's room for me to sit at the end. So that although I can't...
So you're not the spectators of the media.
No,
you're actually
I'm actually at the horseshoe.
Okay.
So I can't participate in debate unless invited to. I can answer questions if asked. And at the end of each meeting, the mayor calls on me for any updates from the region or any commentary or take questions from the council.
Now, do you attend every...
I try to go to every other one.
Okay.
Again, with all the committees I'm at the region, it's bi-weekly. So I try to do one a month. Okay. And then in the summer, they only meet once a month anyway, so I try to sneak in there as well. But again, we have an open line of communication. I get along with all the local aldermen. If they have a regional issue in their ward, they call me up, they email me, and we try to address it as fast as we can, so we don't have to wait for the meetings. The days of everyone have to call each other are gone, right? We email each other right away if there's an issue. And so I have a good working relationship. I can see how if you're a regional councillor who doesn't have that relationship with your council, or you're at odds with some of the local council and some of the other things, I can see how that can be frustrating, and I can see how dual duty might be seen as a solution to that, especially in say St. Catharines or even Niagara Falls to a certain extent. They could probably justify it there. But for us, I think Fort Erie has a seat at the table for Member Nunziata or Councillor Nunziata. I think Port Corbin has a standing item on their agenda for a report from the regional councillor. Wainfleet doesn't apply. West Lincoln doesn't apply. So the different municipalities have. I don't know what Lincoln does. Whether they have a seat at the table or a table there for their regional councillor, or they just make them if they want to delegate, they can do that. So, and again, you have to have a good working relationship with your local area municipalities to make things work. But I don't think One Niagara is the solution. I've never believed in that because I think that marginalizes the smaller municipalities that actually have. We have a pretty diverse group of municipalities. They all have different wants and needs and different directions that they're going, and that's not a bad thing. It adds to our diversity.
Welcome to our Facebook Live. People are watching in. Sorry, the phone's way over there. These microphones aren't for you. But you can text us in a question if you want to talk to Tony Quirk of the NPCA or Niagara Regional Council. I did get a email here. A real estate at Team Niagara. Plug. I need to fucking sell a house soon or I'm not going to be doing this show much longer. We're commercial free. We're sponsor free. Oh, I want to say thank you to Tyler Barron. These mics are about $1,800 each. These are 414s. It doesn't matter about that. AKG. Yeah, I think they're 414s or something like this. These are good mics. Tyler, thank you for lending me the stuff, and Josh Mills, another buddy of mine that lent me some gear to get this going. And that iRig is doing pretty good. You don't need a whole hell of a lot of equipment to do this job properly. So Tony Quirk's my guest. You can Facebook in. I see a few comments here. I also have an email. Oh my gosh, there's a lot in here.
Don't tell me who it's from.
Yeah. And I'm now waving to everyone saying, somebody just joined, because I don't think that when you come on to Facebook Live that it probably says you're here unless you comment like Allison and Peter and Keith did. It sounds like it's working decently. So Tony Quirk is my guest. If you want to ask him a question, you can type it in the comments here on Facebook Live. This will be uploaded to YouTube. It only takes me about 14 hours to upload it in HD, but it'll be done probably today sometime. And if you watch it with the captions on, they almost always capture exactly what we're saying. So Tony Quirk's my guest. If you got a question for him, you can blast it off to me here at Real Estate at Team Niagara, or you can just pin it right in the comment section of the Facebook Live. Tony, just before we get rolling again, there's how is this freaking pole in the middle of my, I don't know, I guess maybe it's been there the whole time. Oh, we are getting some comments that I wasn't looking. They're not coming up on my computer for some reason. But this was not here before. I'm not sure how it got there or whatever, but who cares? We'll take care of that later. So, anyways, thanks for joining in, Tony. Just, I don't want to beat NPCA to death, but
I'm happy to talk about NPCA.
We got some huge PR issues there, and
I don't disagree.
Before, I used to have this problem with the NEC, and then the NPC, and then the NPCA. It seems like, what the fuck do we need the NPCA for? Why can't, again, it's like the region. Let's abolish this body, because they don't seem to get anything right or done. $11 million is their budget, something in that range? Yep. We got $1 billion at the region. Now, I know that doesn't all go away if we abolish the region. There's some serious costs to run things. It's just the governance end of it. And the governance end of the NPCA has been a fucking abortion for the last little while. And, Sandy Annunciati, I'm chasing Sandy. He'll be on soon with me. But
I would say that's a pretty generalization in terms of governance. I think we've got a great board at the NPCA. I think that the NPCA, two boards passed, started a process to try to fix some of the concerns that they heard with the NPCA. Mm-hmm. They undertook a strategic plan process, largest consultation they'd ever done with a series of stakeholders, conservation groups, park users, farmers, municipal planners, a whole group of people out there, environmentalists, basically saying, we need to hear from you how we can make things better at the NPCA. And they heard loud and clear. And that strategic plan, again, was started in 2012, that process, to start the 2014 to 2017 strategic plan. And what they heard was actually what you would expect to hear at the time. Overreach of our staff going on people's properties without so much as a buy or leave. Obstructionist within our planning department. That was, if you wanted to stop development, put them on the NPCA, because they'll make sure they're obstructionist.
The NPCA has never stopped development of anything other than ruining private people's lives. If you get a fucking commercial winery, you're in like Flynn.
No, that's not entirely accurate.
You change the stream downstream.
Not accurate statements, but that's okay. Never let the truth get in the way of a good podcast.
You're a bad boy.
You want me to hear
People's
things?
Lives have been ruined. Bob Mackey.
Bob Mackey was NEC. So that was absolutely not the NPCA.
Okay.
All right. Barnfield put fill in a wetland. And if you talk about the whole thing, that is the one thing you're not allowed to do, put fill in a wetland. And so in his case, and we completely 100% agree with it, because this started, the Barnfield started before I got on the board, and under the old regime. And basically, Barnfield said, no one told us this was a wetland, right? Because the map changed. The NPCA gets their maps from MNR, Ministry of Natural Resources. The map changed and no one gets notified. That's a huge problem for us. Right? We're doing the same thing with the floodplain mapping. They started the whole process to change the floodplain, which has huge impacts on people's lives.
The floodplain on my dad's property in Port Robinson comes up 6 inches from his barn. And it's be 3,000 years before that thing ever floods that high.
And no one tells anyone when they're doing that. So we stopped the floodplain process, and we stopped we basically changed our mindset from compliance rather than conviction. It's not our nature to get conviction, but we need compliance. So on a couple things, we are mandated under provincial law to follow Provincial Offences Act, right? We can't just arbitrarily decide not to or pursue someone. If someone violates the law, we have to pursue it. But we have some flexibility in terms of the accountability and do it. So, for example, offer was made, please plead guilty that you put Phil in a landfill, right? We will actually restore it through our restoration program and help you get back to complying with us, right? That is the sort of thing that we're trying to do under the new board. That's not acceptable to some people because they didn't want to have that argument, right? They wanted to make it an issue. You try to be reasonable with some, and that doesn't always come out the way you want it to. But again, we still have personalities within the NPCA. Mm-hmm. But the current board, the current board is moving forward.
Who's the former chair?
Bruce Timms.
Yeah, smart guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
He got the hell out of the way so he could get reelected. Sandy Annunziata, big dumb football player, maybe took too many hits. He's got big gonads getting up there and being the chair. So good on you, Sandy. And I don't agree with Sandy on everything, but I did chase him. He did take my call, unlike many other politicians. Well, not many other. Walter Sendzik. Well, what are you afraid of? Well, I mean,
Sandy is a great spokesman for the NPCA. He understands that there has been a mandate creep within the conservation authorities as a whole, but within our specific conservation authority, we get a huge mandate creep. I'll give you another example. We, under a memorandum of understanding, comment on planning applications for the region for their environmental issues, right? There's a whole section, Chapter 5 in our plan. We comment. The NPCA comments on behalf of the region. In the official plan for environmentals, it does say that we reserve the right to change the maps. Mm-hmm. We had staff at the NPCA who are supposed to interpret the official plan and supposed to comment on the official plan, trying to change the official plan maps. That's not acceptable, right? Mm-hmm. That's overreach, and that becomes problematic as well. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the reasons some of the issues that are still there for the region to say, okay, let's rediscuss the protocols for the MOU. What do you want to comment on? What do you want to not comment on? As well as what should the NPCA be working on? And ultimately, we comment if there is a provincially significant wetland or if you want to put a fill within the buffer of the provincially significant wetland. So there's a 15-meter buffer. So if you try to do any work within a 15-meter buffer of a wetland, you are allowed to do that provided you get a permit. And the reason why is so that our ecologists can go out there, make sure that the fill is not going to be detrimental to the wetland. So that's the first thing. The second thing is slope erosion. That is something else that we protect. So if you are building on a slope, the NPCA gets involved because water flow, slope downstream, all those things come into play. So those are actually the only two things that the NPCA is mandated to regulate, slope and wetlands, and fill within a wetland buffer. So once we get beyond that scope, then absolutely, there's been reinterpretations of the regional official plan to the point where regional staff, planning staff, are not agreeing with the NPCA. We've had things that have been mandated down to the region from municipal Ministry of Natural Resources. The region is then taking those Ministry of Natural Resources and handing them off to the NPCA. And then the NPCA is commenting on them, but saying, well, we want to hear back from the MNR before we give you the go-ahead. And it's like becomes a circular argument. So there's some frustration within the professional staff at the region about sort of the direction the NPCA has taken. And ultimately, this current board that I'm proud to serve on has been trying to get that focus back in place. Here's what we are supposed to do. Here's where we can do it. We do some really good work within our $11 million budget. A lot of that is also spent on our parks and our passive parks. We have 39 different properties. Only 4 of them are revenue generators. Those 4 revenue-generating parks, Long Beach, Chippewa, Balls Falls, and Binbrook, are all great facilities. They need investments. They need more investments. They've been neglected for a long time. And we are investing money with the profits that we're making from those parks. And that allows us to also do more work on our passive parks, Beamer Falls and Grimsby, for example, which we're putting up a new
So help me out here,
platform.
logistically. If the NPCA goes away tomorrow, what happens?
You could
Good and bad.
So if the NPCA went away tomorrow, we'd have to find someone to operate our parks. We'd have to find someone to maintain our properties. Right? We've got 4 parks.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah.
We need someone to maintain our properties. We have lots of passive properties, including Beaver Falls, Woods End, places where people can enjoy the nature on our own property. We would have to find someone to maintain the regional beach, because we do that for them. And we'd also have to have someone go and start issuing permits for fill in wetland buffer or for slope design. So you'd have to get another bylaw officer or planning staff to take care of it.
I will say this, that a friend of mine just built a house in Welland. NPCA came out and said, no, you can't put the house there. You got to put it here. He said, get down here. And I don't know what the frustration was, why they didn't want to come out, but they finally came out, did a site visit. He says, here's the trees where you want me to plant. This is the wetland, where you want me to build. Sorry. And it was low-lying, and he would have had a wet basement, and the trees were no bigger than 6 inches around. Yeah. He says, I want to build over there, where it's high, and whatever. And they turned it around. They let him build it where he wanted to on the other street, because there was another thing. Oh, no, you can't go off that street. He was doing a severance on a big property in Welland, rural Welland, and had him come out. And I've never heard of the NPCA kind of reversing their decisions before.
So keep in mind that we get our mapping data from Ministry of Natural Resources. They go over.
But they hire high school students to fly over in helicopters. No?
I'm just telling you, we get the maps from Ministry of Natural Resources, and we have found repeatedly, more and more, that these maps are not accurate, or the evaluation system has some questions on it. So we have been getting our staff to be more proactive in terms of about going out. And I'll give you an example, again, how it used to be. If he had been said, I want to build my house here, the old staff would have said, you're in a wetland, can't do it, right? The new staff would say, okay, you want to build on this property, this part's in the wetland, this part isn't in the wetland, what about moving it over there? And then we don't even have any comment on it, or you just have to get a permit to fill in a buffer of a wetland. And they're trying to be more proactive on those things. There has been some backsliding on that, we get that. But at the end of the day, our staff are generally there not to be obstructionists, but to regulate. Neither pro-development or anti-development. They're there to regulate within those two main features, right? Mm-hmm. But I'll give you another example, right? Natural heritage. Right now, the big thing with Ministry of Natural Resources is bat migration and species at risk with bats. So we had another developer speaking to us, and they were saying we went in, we looked at the maps, there was no environmental issues, there was no thing on the natural heritage, on the regional maps, went in there and looked, and then one of our staff came up and said, you've got potential bat habitat. It was a stand of 10 or 12 emerald ash trees that were dead. And they said, well, that could be a potential bat habitat. We need to now do a bat study. And so they were added this extra level of bureaucracy, where the reality is that those emerald ash trees should have been removed because we have this big program that's taking down emerald ash trees all over the region. So it's one of those things, left hand not knowing what the right hand is, being reasonable and being professional. And those are the sort of discussions that people have to see, is that this is not being pro-development or anti-development, this is being reasonable and practical. Right? Why are we there? Oh, and by the way, that stand of trees wasn't on the map, so it was just arbitrarily added to the map as an environmental feature. So those are concerning.
Definitely, and I think it's an image problem more than anything, I think, and I'm not sure that the taxpayer is really feeling like they're getting their money's worth, and we've only got one pocket. It doesn't matter whether you're talking municipal, regional, provincial, or federal, there's only one pocket, and increasingly the government just thinks that they can go to our pocket, and the budgets never get smaller. The zero-based budget is how many communities actually practice that, but from a PR standpoint, whether it be Carmen getting a CEO job or whether it be, are you guys suing Ed Smith or is that the region?
We are. The NPCA is suing Ed Smith.
Dude, how the hell does that happen? How do you use my fucking tax dollars to hire a guy that doesn't agree and speaks out publicly against you? Whether or not his report,
let's be clear. Let's be absolutely 100% clear on this, right? The NPCA is not suing Ed Smith for asking questions or disagreeing with us. The NPCA has launched a defamation lawsuit against Ed Smith because
You think that's a winnable case, though, dude?
Because he defamed a staff member of the NPCA, and this is what's in the lawsuit. He defamed a staff member. He defamed the staff member. He made false statements within his allegations. He was asked twice to correct them. Asked twice, please correct these. We don't care if you ask questions. If he had corrected those issues, we could have answered the other questions. But unfortunately, he's a very stubborn individual. He decided that he was right, absolutely 100% right, and was not going to back down. That's his choice. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, we're free speech supporters. I actually think that governments have to be held to account. I think people should ask questions, lots of questions. I think you should try to ask them respectfully. But when you actually make misstatements and you misrepresent the truth, and then you're told that this is not true, you are shown proof that it is not true, and you still stand by it, unfortunately, the only recourse in those situations is for a legal recourse. And I have a lot of faith in our legal system. The legal system is going to determine once and for all whether these statements were true or not true. If the statements were true, he'll get an apology, we'll get a slap on the wrist, and we'll probably not get reelected. However, his statements are patently false. He has made repeatedly false statements. We've shown them how they're false, and he still won't correct the record. And unfortunately, those statements were used deliberately to defame an individual who was working for our organization, and specifically to prevent him from getting a new job and a new position. So that's pretty significant.
Allegation, man.
Yeah, it's a statement of fact, and if anyone wants to sue me over it, I'm happy to be sued over it because it's a statement of fact that I can prove. So be very clear that we're not suing Ed Smith. We're not suing Ed Smith for asking questions. We've never sued anyone for asking questions. I would never sue anyone for asking questions. Ed Smith is being sued because he made a statement repeatedly that was not true and deliberately defamed one of our staff members. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, that's not acceptable. Not in civilized society, right? And you know what? I just wish someone, if I make a mistake, right, and I say something that's not true, and someone points out to me and says, Tony, you said this, and here's the thing. And I'm man enough to say, you know what, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, right? Mm-hmm. But when you stand up there and say, you know what, you said this, it's patently not true, here's the proof that it's not true, and you still say, I'm standing by this 100%, I'm not backing down, right? Then it says, okay, you actually are not interested in the truth or answers. You have made this political. And he's repeatedly made it political since then. He's got up in front of our board. He's got up front in the council saying, we're watching for the next municipal election. We are watching, and we want you to know that we're all watching for the next municipal election.
But he's not running. He's got no interest in your job.
It doesn't matter. The point is that he's decided to make it a political discussion as opposed to actually having a question of facts. And get through everything else, right? The Auditor General chose not to pursue any investigation with us, knowing all the facts, knowing all the allegations, because it was political.
You mean the audit?
The Auditor General, yeah. So the Auditor General has said, this is political. This is not, they've reviewed, she had all the facts in front of her. She's reviewed everything. She's not going to proceed and anything because there's nothing there. We're doing our internal audits, our value for money audits, and we're finding things that we're not always aware of, and we'll continue moving down those paths, right? When I became audit chair at the region, we initiated the value for money audit program, right? The ones that led to the forensic audit in that way. I think it's a great program. All our programs should go through a value for money audit on a regular recycling basis because that's when you find things out. That's when you can say, okay, we look at big 50,000 foot level. Every now and then we got to dig down to ground level and say, is the money being well spent, right? And that's what we're doing at the NPCA. And we're going to continue doing that. And we haven't stopped doing that because the Auditor General said she wanted to do it. We're doing our own audits as part of our strategic plan review, and that'll continue forward.
What about the lobbyist when it comes to thundering water? And I get that emotions are high on the NPCA, especially when it comes to thundering waters, because here you have an old-growth forest.
Hold on. We don't have an old-growth forest. That's the other misconception.
PSW.
No, we have neither of those things. So we just we have it on some of the property, but you saw the aerial photos that were presented in Niagara Falls, right? In 1934, it was being farmed. It was cleared. These aren't old-growth forests. These are only 60, 70 years old at the most. We have the 1950s photos, right? Big, huge clear areas that were farmed. So being very clear that it's not an old-growth forest. It's not an old-growth PSW. It is a more recent feature. And that, again, people are making claims about it that are not completely accurate. The property can be developed. There's all sorts of area on that property as a whole that can be developed. There's whole sorts of areas that are outside the current PSW mapping. There's whole sorts of areas that are open for logging, wood management, managed forest. There's all sorts of parts of that property. It's not homogeneous, right? The issue is the province set out a white paper saying we would like your feedback on biodiversity offsetting, which is a policy and procedure that's included in the current makeup. You can do biodiversity offsetting now, right, as a last line of options.
Last line, yeah. I mean,
so they wanted commentary on it. And they basically said, we are working on a no net loss thing. So if you want to biodiversity offset here, take an equal amount, put it here, and we consider it no net loss. The NPCA stood up and said, no, we will support biodiversity offsetting if, instead of doing 1, you do 3. Because in Niagara, we've seen a reduction in the amount of wetland. We would like to see an increase in wetland. If you go no net loss, you're not creating any new wetlands. Mm-hmm. So we said, let's do 3 for 1. And we said, if you are going to allow biodiversity offsetting, we would like somewhere in Niagara to be a pilot project, so we can show that it's possible. And we've already seen it repeatedly on the creation of wetlands across the province, where it works. So there's two. Well, I was actually just on the Conservation Ontario biannual tour in last week, and we just saw a fantastic wetland creation at the Dufferin Quarry in Halton. So that's actually a quarry. It doesn't get more bare bones than that, right? Mm-hmm. And they've created 106 hectares of wetland out of their old quarry. It's absolutely phenomenal. One of the most beautiful pieces I've ever seen in terms of wetland recreation. Absolutely gorgeous. And it's all thanks to proper wetland restoration and management. So it can be done. It should be done. We've done a small scale with EC
You don't
Brown.
think it should be done there for the Chinese project? Is that what you're saying? It should be done there?
It could be done there. I have no problem if it's done there, if it's done right and the science supports it. Right? So you have to create.
These are just
3-for-1s.
Emotional Birkenstock wearing, tree hugging.
No,
Green
I
Party
think there are people who don't want the development there, right? I have a bit of a problem because a lot of people keep referring to it as the Chinese development as opposed to development. So I worry that there is an undertone of racism to it, right? We don't want to do it because the Chinese are doing it. But if it was Tom Rankin doing it, we'd be all happy because he's a local boy, right? That's not the issue. The issue is if you're opposed to the development, it shouldn't matter whether it's Chinese development or other development.
That's a microaggression. Chinese development.
So, in
but
particular,
I mean,
if you
Jim went over there with the
the
sole purpose to drum up some business, and then he found this potential.
Yeah, with the premier, and she was involved with it from the get-go too.
And
right?
that was the narrative that he kind of sold his soul, which included a wetland, a PSW. Which now, I mean, it's just much of it is optics, and I really appreciate your candor. I don't know it inside out. I didn't camp there. I'm way past my Green Party days as far as investing myself. But we've seen from the storm surges, and we've seen storms, 200-year rains coming in and stuff like this. These low-lying areas and these natural seepage and runoff areas and the salamanders and the frogs and I get that whole thing, and I don't believe in biodiversity. You can't recreate what God created as a wetland if you believe in God.
But we are recreating wetlands all the time because the amount of wetland on the mapping goes up quite a bit each year, right? So we do see new wetlands being created. A farmer puts a drainage pond in and leaves it and lets it go fallow. It'll create a wetland, right? So we see it along ditches. We do it along drainage ditches. Municipal drains become wetlands. This whole area was wetlands before it was all drained to farm it. So wetlands are recreatable. We do recreate them. But I will say this. We have a policy with smart growth that limits, and Greenbelt, that limits the growth and intensification of our communities within their current urban boundaries. And when you have urban wetlands, there are going to have to be tools in place to mitigate the damage or the impact of further growth. Because what Thundering Waters could do is develop the area that they are already allowed to develop, right? About 50% of the property can be developed. It's outside the scope, outside the wetlands. And what that could end up doing is fragmenting the other wetlands, in which case they could dry up, they could die on their own accord, right? Or they become, I forget what the term that the biologists use when they become all incestuous and they can't cross-pollinate.
Or you could overload them with runoff.
Or you can overload it with runoff. So there is a way to do, and the GRCan proposal that was put out there actually adopted this 3-for-1 ratio. They were happy to conceptually do it because they felt they could make a better, more attractive project by doing that. So I don't know if you've actually seen their plans when they were talking about them, but they were very, very interesting. And they brought pictures of things that they had done in China for that very reason. China is not known for being one that's environmentally sensitive to anything going on. But this was a group that actually had some input into how to make environmentally sound investments in infrastructure and development. So if you're you've got these competing policies. You've got, okay, no movement of a wetland whatsoever, and we're never going to satisfy any environmentalist if we move a wetland or we change the wetland. But we also have this smart growth policy that says we all got to cram ourselves into the current urban boundaries because we're all going to go up so we can save all this other green land. Well, so the green space within the urban boundary has to either be maintainable or it has to be adjustable or flexible. So there's going to be competing policies in place there to deal with that urban restriction.
So, what do you think what's your solution for solving the PR problem? I mean, the way I see it is, well, no, we didn't suggest biodiversity offsetting. Well, actually, we found this email. Yeah, you did. And then the whole
but it's very clear
lobbyists.
If you follow the timeline, white paper comes out, province asks what your opinion on biodiversity offsetting is. We actually respond, no net loss, 3-1. Oh, and by the way, the final result, after all this, and all the attention that's been brought to it, and all the other things, the province has gone, no net loss, 1 for 1. So they've actually ignored our suggestion for more wetland. So that's where it is. But if you follow the timeline, it's there. How I would address a PR issue is come talk to people like yourself, not doing it in a 30-second soundbite at 6:10. You can't do it unless you get in front or talk to people or sit down with them and explain the situation. And we can have policy discussions and we can have policy differences. And you may say biodiversity offsetting doesn't work. I can say it does work. We do it. At the end of the day, the answer has been, I disagree with you, so you're corrupt.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's just BS.
I'm totally corrupt.
That's ridiculous. So, or you're in the pocket of developers, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's been a lot of history of people being in the pocket of developers. I mean, I take at what level are they most corrupt? The municipal and regional ones, usually.
I take great pride in the fact that I self-finance my own campaigns, right? As I always say, I don't solicit donations. If they come, I deposit them, but I've never ever. The max you can pay do a donation is $750. You can't buy me for $750. I'll tell you that much.
Amen. Speak to the lobbyist. Why? Is that a good, effective use of our tax dollars?
Okay, so
like who are you? What are you lobbying?
Lobbyists. There are lobbyists, and then there's communications experts, and there are people that do both, right? And there are people who we need to talk to about various issues, all sorts of issues. Is a lobbyist? There's certain things that we need to have access to make our position clear. It's just the reality. And an effective lobbyist, everyone's turned lobbyists into a dirty word, but if you have the person who can liaise, who can be used to make sure that you can get the meetings that you need to meet, why wouldn't you, right? The region required someone to help us with our GO train file, right? So we brought someone on board, basically looked after a lot of the heavy lifting on the GO train file. Make sure that we were in front of the right people, making sure that we can make the argument to the right person, making sure that our argument is being heard and followed up on. I think there's a lot of people who want to use lobbyists as a dirty word. I actually think I have a lot of friends who are lobbyists. A lot of them are professionals. A lot of them are there to make sure that they follow a set of rules and guidelines. I think there are some legitimate times when we need to have direct access to decision makers at different levels of government.
All right. And then this recent discussion with the region about handing off some responsibility to them or whatever, and then followed up with the termination of 8 employees.
Handing back some responsibilities. So
just bad timing. All of a sudden, staffers are gone. And
I would tell you,
the media. I think the problem is the narrative has become out there. These guys are the frontline workers. These are the conservationists.
Yeah, and it's absolutely not true. So here's what I'll say on that, because it's not just the areas of responsibility that required. Let me give you an example. We talking about budget costs and budget expenditures going up all the time. We looked at our budget. I'm the budget chair at the NPCA, right? And we get a certain amount of money that we levy. We don't bill anyone. We levy. It's a tax bill. It goes on everyone's land, property tax bill. And on that levy, there's about $450,000 worth of services that we provide to the region. And they include water quality monitoring, the tree bylaw, the Children's Water Festival that we put on for the water department, and I'm going to forget one now because I'm doing it on the fly here. What am I missing? Oh, planning. Commenting on Chapter 5 environmental things. Mm-hmm. So the tree bylaw, we have one staff employee who we charge the region close to $160,000 for that one employee. He doesn't make close to that. So the NPCA profits from that, and it offsets our general levy. And that means that the people of Niagara further subsidize the people of Haldeman and Hamilton because it goes on the general levy. So, but here's the thing. Our tree bylaw officer is there solely to enforce the Niagara Regional bylaw. So when our NPCA guy goes out there and issues a good forestry practices permit to a guy who's clear-cutting a forest, it's not the region that's issued the permit, it's the NPCA. And then again, oh, well, you're in the pocket of developers. You've just allowed them to clear-cut a forest. We didn't. Our employee did on behalf of the Niagara region. So there's one example, right? So there's a guy, great guy, by the way. He's a smart forester. He understands that wood is a resource, and he has his degree in forest management. He's a great guy. If he's enforcing a regional bylaw, he should be on the regional staff. So what we said was, these are things that we shouldn't be levying from. We shouldn't be putting them on the taxpayers. We should be invoicing the region for the services we provide, right? This is trying to make the budget more transparent, clear, and open. These are things that we should invoice you for. Children's Water Festival, huge event at Balls Falls. We do that because under the water department, they have a mandate for education. They kind of handed that off to the NPCA. The problem is they don't give us enough to have a full-time employee, but it's not enough work for just a part-time employee. So we said, you guys take that on yourself. We'll rent you the facility. You want the employee part-time, she can do other things at the region, but for that one event, it doesn't make sense to have her there. So you guys do that. Oh, and by the way, that amount comes off the water rate budget. It's not even on the levy. So it's all convoluted. The planning and the water quality, the region has indicated so far that they would like us to continue providing their water quality report because we can do it a lot cheaper than they do because we do it as part of our other services that we provide as part of the Source Water Protection Agency. So that's one of the areas where the region says, no, you hold on to that, we'll do that. So I'm looking at it and saying, as a taxpayer, by the NPCA doing those services, it's costing the taxpayers an extra $150,000 a year to do that, and that profit is going to offset the operating budget of the NPCA. So if you, Mr. Region, take those services back where we're profiting from, you can do them cheaper if you want. You can keep it within your budget, but it allows me to clear out our budget and actually focus on our core mandate, which is what we're trying to do.
Oh, I think we beat that one.
I told you. You put me on here. You told me. You told me.
Be out of here by 6 o'clock.
You told me 2 hours. I said I'm going to fill it.
Code of conduct.
Yes.
Man, I was so proud. I'm proud of you. I don't know you, but it's easy to be proud of somebody when you think they're doing something they should be doing. And I don't think the region is doing. You say you're doing a lot of good work, and I'm sure you're right at some level, but there's too much responsibility on me to come and make sure you guys are doing the right thing or that you're not getting off track. And we've spent more time on dual duty or double director or whatever you want to call it that would never, I said this from the beginning, fuck that, it'll never pass. You'll never get Fort Erie, Wayne Fleet, Port Colborne, Niagara Lake, on all these small communities come on board with this idea, just like the one Niagara. It's a dead duck. It'll never fly. Don't waste my fucking time. 2 years we talked about it. St. Catharines, region, we've been batting this around. This integrity commissioner, same fucking thing, man. Nobody's broken any laws. Yeah. Are you disrespectful? Yeah, probably. The counselor should know better. Even Brian Height walked out the other day and said something disgusting or something to Selena.
It was not Councillor Height.
No, you're right.
It was Councillor Edgar, and he did apologize.
Okay, and so there should be probably a little bit more flexibility. It shouldn't take a guy like Andy to get so far down the road before he goes, okay, I take plastic face back. I think plastic face is genius. I think it's hilarious. And, oh, come on, if we're going to be that thin-skinned, the town of Pelham, the council, Pelham Town Council is filing an integrity commissioner complaint. That's not even within the scope. Yeah, they're a corporation. They're not eligible to be. So anyway,
they shouldn't have been able. That should not have been go forward, because the code of conduct is supposed to be individuals making complaints about individual councillors
or councillors.
So as councillors, I actually don't think, and as someone who has filed a complaint against one of my fellow councillors, I actually don't agree that we should be able to do that. I think we should actually be able to have
recently
a conversation.
You got something new?
Beginning of this year. No, at the beginning of this year. It was I felt that Councillor Augustine had misrepresented a decision of council in his blog, and I called him out on it, asked him to correct it. He wouldn't, so I filed it with the integrity commissioner. I said, this is not what we voted on. And the integrity commissioner came back and said, it's politics and it's an interpretation. And I'm like, but he's actually saying it differently than what we actually voted on. And the integrity commissioner didn't care. But I will say this. I think the code of conduct could be one line. Code of conduct should be respect each other, respect your constituents, respect taxpayers' money. And we get to respect. And the problem we have with the code of conduct is that it's used as a political weapon more often than not. There are absolutely times when councillors, and to a certain extent, a councillor has gone off the deep end and made inappropriate remarks. And you know what? If they're caught and called on them, they should be able to say, yes, you know what, I'm sorry, heat of the moment, I apologize. There are other times when people are using the code of conduct to try to dictate opinion. And that's dangerous, right? And I'm not saying that there are opinions that are right and opinions that are wrong. I think there are people who express opinions who should not be expressing opinions. But there are, we're elected. People ask our opinion before they vote for us. They expect us to have an opinion on certain issues. And if I can't share my opinion with you because I'm afraid of getting a code of conduct complaint because you don't agree with my opinion, that's different. If you're being disrespectful, that, I think, is that's fair game. I think if you cannot have a conversation at the elected level and stay respectful, and I've lost my cool on occasion, I'm the first to admit it. I actually have a very foul mouth when no one's around.
Me too.
It's great. Yeah, I know, but you're doing it on the air. I'm trying to avoid that. But at the end of the day, it's the lack of respect that I think gets people, is what people expect on the code of conduct. Be respectful. The problem is that the people who are making code of conduct an issue want to do it because they don't like a particular council. They don't like what a councillor has said. They don't like his opinion on something. And they've decided to make that the issue. Now, do some people... Okay, let's talk about Andy. Does Andy bring it upon himself sometimes? Yes. Because Andy, you said, he's the brightest guy in the room. He's very smart. He's principled, right? He's practical, but
he's consistent.
His approach is the problem, right? The problem is his approach. And I think he would be so much more effective, and I've said this to him multiple times, if you could just tone your approach back, because you come across as disrespectful right out of the gate. So all of a sudden everyone else gets their back up. And when you get frustrated, he makes inappropriate comments and comments about various other councillors and gets caught on. People hear it and they file complaints. But I also think when we talk about the current code of conduct, and we've seen it there, is I've tried to focus it on when you're acting in your official capacity. And
there's going to be people that will fight you.
Absolutely, 100% people are fighting.
You're on 24/7.
So, and I use the example a couple times, right? I go to church. My previous priest was very much against gay marriage, 100% against marriage, and often preached about it.
Well, then he's a homophobe. He's a hate-filled homophobe then.
And I shouldn't, and I could be a code of conduct complaint for attending that event in my church capacity. That's problematic for me. I also think that, give another example, some of our counselors, if they have a problem with their personal life, could a jealous spouse or a vengeful ex-wife start using the code of conduct as a political weapon? Well, that's not in your official capacity that these things happen, and you have to be able to justify that. What people are using to say I use the official capacity to protect Andy, everything that Andy's been called out on, he's been doing in his official capacity because he uses his Twitter. He clearly identifies himself as a regional councillor.
Not anymore, he doesn't.
Well, he's smartened up. Like on my Twitter, I identify myself as a regional councillor. My Facebook page, I have a regional councillor Facebook page, and I have my personal page.
Oh,
and
you my just personal only page, add the people that you want on your personal page.
On my personal page, I share inappropriate jokes. I
really
let people know
That's
how
why
many.
I haven't got an invite to there.
How many days until the next Star Wars movie? Like I put all my stuff on my kids, right? Like that's my personal page, and sometimes I get into heated debates, and you've seen them as on there with people, and I express my opinion. If they want to use my personal opinion and personal page as a reason not to vote for me, that's totally 100%. That's like me getting into an argument in a bar and people overhearing the argument and saying, "Well, I'm not going to vote for him because he's such an a-hole," right? But at the same time, I'm also not there in an official capacity having an argument with someone about, I don't know, beliefs or church or God or whatever the argument is, right? Or the appropriate way to deal with the refugee crisis. Those are things that I'm allowed to have an opinion on. You may not agree with my opinion on a lot of these, but nonetheless, I'm entitled to my opinion. And if you don't like how I've expressed it, it's not necessarily a code of conduct complaint. We really are looking for a way to encourage respectful discourse as opposed to thought police, and that's what I don't think we've got to. Right?
Well, and I think you might support this only because I saw the meeting where Selena and you had 56 or 58 amendments or recommendations or scratches or what have you, and the whole time I'm like, yeah. And again, I find myself agreeing with people that I'm ideologically, politically opposed with normally. I don't see things in the right film, the right filter, the right political spectrum, the conservative, let's say. I'm a lefty. I'm a Green Party guy. So, social conservative, I don't know. Fiscal conservative, a little bit of socialism is good for us. We need to take care of people right the first time. Otherwise, they come back into the system and it costs them 100 times. Well, if we just give them health care right in the first time, well, we got health care pretty down well. And I get to talk to a lot of guys. I called Ed Smith a couple days ago, all right? Because I haven't spoken to him in a long time. I met him about a year and a half ago. He seemed like a intelligent, reasonable, educated, probably stubborn too. I mean, I'm that way too, and I think Ed would probably admit he's probably that way. I don't know. But a good man and with a good heart, and there's so much emotion here. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you're talking NPCA or Bill Argument. Andy's a bum. Well, thanks, Bill. I mean, that's thanks for contributing to the conversation. Yeah. You're a bum. Who cares? I mean, we're all bums. That's effective. And so this is the idea. It shouldn't be personal, right? But I feel like you probably feel like I do. I talked to Ed Smith the other day. He's like, no, if you work for GE, it doesn't matter where you go. You're on the clock. You represent GE. But I think from a political standpoint, politicians need to be able to say whatever they want, whether they're in favor of communism or taxation or socialism or killing the region or whatever. As soon as you say, you can't talk about Jesus. You can't talk about, and I've used this example to death. I'm in favor of same-sex marriage. If you want to change your sexual parts and put new ones on, I'm all for it. I've got the other part of the argument that goes, well, wait a second. Let's not force a 10-year-old into estrogen puberty instead of testosterone puberty. You can't get a fucking tattoo until you're 18, but you can chop your parts off and put new ones on. So, but if you want to do that when you're old enough, I'm all for it. But if I come down and say the traditional families are more successful for the children than single-family homes, well, as it turns out, maybe gay marriages are probably more successful because they tend to be more educated and higher wage earners. But if I come out and say my religion leads me to not support same-sex marriage, that doesn't automatically make me a hate-filled homophobe, And this whole media, Andy goes international with this nude. I said nude. Now I fell for this. I tweeted out, I'm going to start signing all my email and tweets with a pornographic image. Now, I also made the point a few weeks ago, if I send out an image of me sitting on a chair naked with my legs open, there's not one media person or not one counselor, not one person in the public that would say that's pornographic. It's a nude. So don't tell, so we're fighting an uphill battle against a lot of these things, and Andy's a bum. Well, great. Great. We're all fucking bums. But,
I'll back you up just a little bit on it.
So my point is, going back, I think politicians need the freedom to be able to say whatever they want politically. If you're not breaking the law.
So, but here's what I go back to. we are absolutely 100% entitled to be judged and voted out or voted in based on whatever I did. 100%. I get into a fight at a bar and you got it on video and it goes viral. That is 100% fair game in the political world to judge me as fit for office, right? It's not necessary to take a code of conduct complaint forward through the code of conduct process because you disagree with my opinion or my beliefs. Or I want to correct your opinions by making you say different things. And that's where we get into this sort of issue with the official capacity and the when can you use the code of conduct.
And
so
what's respectful?
And let's go on another
Who draws
side, right?
the line? With the...
Some of my colleagues have other jobs. They have full-time jobs and they do the regional councillor stuff part-time. And if they are doing something in those jobs that could be problematic for them, or they get into a fight or an argument with a customer or with a supplier, and then the supplier calls a code of conduct complaint on them. Under this current regime, that would be absolutely legitimate. And that's not helpful either, because there has to be a differentiation between the official capacity that you're working in and what you're doing in your private personal life. Your private personal life is 100% fair game for determining whether you're fit to be elected or not. But it's not a code of conduct issue, and that's what I'm trying to get to. If the code of conduct says be respectful for each other and I'm not respectful to you, then okay, yeah, give me a code of conduct complaint, say I wasn't respectful. I will also say that's really hard for elected officials because there's a lot of people who I don't respect, but I try to be respectful with them, right? And that's always the
respect is not guaranteed. Yeah. You can't make me respect you. Yeah. There's no freaking way, and so you
that's
can't
why
legislate respect either.
But you can legislate people to act respectfully.
So people aren't worth my respect.
You don't have to respect them. You just have to be respectful. So this is why I say, go back to same-sex marriage, or as an example, my religion may not agree with same-sex marriage. I personally am completely indifferent. Right? It's not an issue for me. If someone asked me, would I attend a gay marriage? Absolutely, 100%. Do I want to get married to another man? I personally don't, but whatever floats your boat. That's not my issue.
Homophobe.
It's not. I am indifferent. I am absolutely indifferent. It's not my marriage. The trials and tribulations I've had in my marriage have not changed one iota since they allowed gay marriage. It's not threatening my marriage in any way, shape, or form. So anyone who says that is being disingenuous. But I understand the religious aspects of it. My point is that if there is a couple that is gay, and I was on a tour at this one I was just at with one of the ladies was talking about her wife and all that. We had a great discussion about science fiction and the best shows on Netflix coming and forthcoming and been on there. And I'm completely respectful of her choices. And that's the other thing, is that you don't shun someone. So it's a balancing act to manage those expectations. I don't impose my view on anyone. Right, but I feel every right to share my view, right, and that's the issue. I can't impose, and this was the other argument. I can't impose my view with a tweet. I can share my view with a tweet, but that doesn't impose it on anyone.
Don't follow me. Don't look at my tweet.
Don't follow me on Facebook. So this is where we get into this dichotomy. And the other thing that would make it a little bit easier, I think, is when you're talking about the official capacity and what you're doing. I think it also helps clarify a lot of the whole issue around councillor expenses, right? If you're doing something in your official capacity, there is an expense included.
Is this Nunziata driving the 1010 official capacity?
He is there as a regional councillor. He wasn't.
Damn straight it is. I talked to McConnell the other day on this. He's like, why is everyone drinking the Kool-Aid? Sorry, Tommy, if I'm talking out of turn, but this is just like bandwagon jumping.
I figured it out. There's very easy test.
$4,000.
Were you invited on Jerry Hagar before you got elected? His answer was no. I was not on Jerry Hagar as a regular contributing guest until I got elected. Do they introduce you as a regional councillor?
Every time.
Every break. Councillor. And do you mention Niagara? So I'm going to tell you, when we talk about lobbying,
the cheapest advertising going.
All the people who listen and make decisions in Toronto, everyone at Queen's Park listens to 1010 every day, and Jerry Hagar is the topic of choice for everyone preparing for question period, for everyone preparing for briefing notes.
He's conservative too, right?
Absolutely. But everyone knows, especially on the other side, the other side knows that that's going to be the question of the day coming into question period. So if you don't think that that's effective, and let's back it out a little bit. Costs about $150 a mileage for him to go there and back. He probably uses, $100 worth of gas. I don't know what it costs now to drive in and out.
It's a weekly trip, right?
He does it once a week. $150 there and back. If you were to advertise
in mileage, you mean?
Yeah. Okay. He gets $150 in mileage expense. Right. If you were to advertise, even the thing where it says announces the news and you get your company mentioned,